Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we're reading this week's Torah portion. And this week we're going to be reading Leviticus 9:1 to 11:47, and we're going to be continuing with the priest and what their job was in a temple, and we're going to go read right through it. And we've been reading up to this point the responsibilities of the people and the sacrifices and offerings and bringing the people to them and what the people are responsible for. Now we're going to switch a little focus, and we're going to see more of what the priests were responsible for in their work. And then we're going to continue to find about the clean and unclean food. So that's this week's Torah portion. Now, if you're not familiar with the Torah portions, I've been doing them since the beginning of this year's cycle, starting in Genesis, going all the way through. And we're going to continue to go through the first 5 books of the Scriptures. The Torah is the foundation of all Scripture, and it's what Yeshua himself taught out of. If you don't have a good, solid foundation, everything that comes from it is going to be weak, and it's going to crumble once the wind starts blowing a little, if you know what I'm saying. So we want to make sure that we have a good foundation in understanding Scripture. Now, some people will say the Torah is the Old Testament. They'll call it, no, it's the original Testament, which is the foundation, and we need to restore it, and that's what Yeshua did because it was that important. It's supposed to be taken off paper and put on our hearts. That's what he wanted to happen. And the only way you're going to get it on your heart is if you continuously study it, learn it, and with the help of the Rahadak Kodesh, the set-apart spirit, you're going to live it, and it's going to be a beautiful thing on both areas. But most people today, they don't study it, they don't read it, they don't know it, and they're not excited about it. And this is why they make excuses to say, well, we don't have to understand that was old, this is new. We have to understand this, folks. Some people will say, well, this is the Mosaic covenant, or this was the word from Moses. No, it wasn't from Moses. Moses was just a messenger. The word was from our wonderful Creator. He's the one that gave us these instructions. It wasn't from Moses. Moses didn't give us instructions. He just was the messenger of the instructions that our Creator gave us. And when you understand that, if you're truly in love with our Creator and you want to be obedient to His Word, you have to know what His Word says. Let's continue here with Leviticus 9, and we see the work of the priest and what was to be done according to the instructions that Moses gave from our Creator to the people, being and fulfilling the job as the prophet to the people. And we're going to continue here, and there was a temporary tabernacle which was like the temple, and it was in the desert. So we're going to continue. We're going to see the priests beginning their work. It says in Leviticus 9:1, after the ordination ceremony, on the 8th day, Moses called together Aaron and his sons, the elders of Israel. So we look at this on the 8th day, which is the first day of the week. And the 7th day is the Shabbat. The 8th day is the first day of the week. And now some people will say, well, that's the day that Messiah rose, and that's the Lord's day, as they'll call it, and that's the way they want to worship. Look, folks, you could worship any day and every day you want, but there's only one day that's the true Sabbath, and that's the 7th day. So we need to get that clear, because when you're reading or listening to a teaching about this and people look at the 8th day, they try to hold that day more special or set apart than the Sabbath, and that is not the case. But in this case here, we see after the whole week of going through and the priests getting all their instructions of what they were to do and how they were to do it, now they begin doing it. And it says, Moses called together Aaron and his sons, who were the elders of Israel. And he said to Aaron, take a young bull for a sin offering, a ram for a burnt offering, both without defects, and present them to our wonderful Creator. And we see the sin offering and the burnt offering are 2 of the several different offerings that we discussed last week. Each offering had its significance and its importance. So we look, they have a ram and a bull. This was the best of the sacrifices, and their heart had to be of the best to give this and offer this. So they were told to take a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering, both without defects, and present them to our Creator. It says, then tell the Israelites. So now they're to tell all the Israelites and everyone else, take a male goat for a sin offering, and take a calf and a lamb, both a year old without defects, for the burnt offering. Also take a bull and a ram for a peace offering, and flour moistened with olive oil for a grain offering. Present all these offerings to our Creator, because our Creator will appear to you today. Now, first of all, we look at all these different type of offerings, and many people are misunderstood about the offerings, thinking there was only one offering and Yeshua fulfilled that offering. No, there were many different types of offerings for many different reasons, and Yeshua filled every single one of those different types of reasons. So it's so much more than just, well, he offered up his body for us and that was that. No, he had the fellowship offering where he offered up the fellowship. He had the burnt offering. He had the grains offering. And he had all the different types of offering that Yeshua filled. And to see what those different types of offerings were, you could just go to the previous teaching and we went through those. So it says they are to present all these offerings today. Now, many times in Scripture we say, well, why do we need to do certain things? And it's not always answered as clearly as why we need to do certain things, but here it's answered clearly. It says, present all these offerings to the Creator because today our wonderful Creator will appear to you. So he's appearing to them because with their hearts and according to their instructions, they made the offerings and the sacrifices he told them to make. We remember Cain and Abel, and we remember the sacrifice wasn't made the way it should have been made. So it's more than just bringing it. So you have to follow his instructions exactly in all things, in all areas. It says in 9:5 of Leviticus, so the people presented all these things at the entrance of the tabernacle, just as Moses has commanded. So they did follow and were obedient to the instructions, exactly how they were commanded. And the whole community came forward and stood before our Creator. Now the whole community consisted of everyone that was traveling with the Israelites, and that wasn't only the Israelites. More than just the Israelites left Egypt. And so when people say these instructions were only for the Israelites or only for Israel and they're not part of Israel, no. When you become a believer in Messiah, you are part of Israel, and the whole community consisted of people that were non-Israelites. And the whole community came there and stood before our wonderful Creator. And Moses said to them, this is what the Creator has commanded you to do, so that the glory of so that his glory may appear to you. And basically this is what you ought to do. Moses said to Aaron, come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering and your burnt offering to purify yourselves to the people. So this is the purification process for Aaron and his sons. He had to go and present his sin offering according to the instructions. It says, then present the offering of the people to purify them, making them right with our Creator, just as Moses has commanded. So they had to follow the directions exactly, and they had to actually do it. Now this is an important fact, because in the Scriptures when it says, you shall know what the Word says of our Creator, but it says, and do. The blessing just doesn't come by knowing. The blessing comes by taking an action and doing. We can't just know, we actually have to do it as well. So you shall know and you shall do. That's the importance of it. You shall take action and make it happen. So Aaron did it. He went to the altar, as it says in Leviticus 9:8. He went to the altar and he slaughtered the calf as a sin offering for himself. His sons brought him the blood and dipped his finger in it and put it on the horns of the altar. He poured out the rest of the blood of the base of the altar. And then he burned on the altar the fat, the kidneys, and a long lobe of the liver from the sin offering, just as the Creator had commanded Moses. The meat and the hide, however, he burned outside the camp. Next, Aaron slaughtered the animal for the burnt offering. His sons brought him the blood and splattered it against the sides of the altar. Then they handed each piece of the burnt offering, including the head, and burned them on the altar. Then he washed the internal organs, legs, and burned them on the altar with the rest of the burnt offering. And then next, Aaron presented the offering of the people. He slaughtered the people's goats, presented it as an offering for their sin, just as he first done with the offering for his own sin. Then he presented the burnt offering and sacrificed it in the prescribed way. Remember that word, the prescribed way. He also presented a grain offering, burning a handful of flour mixed on the altar, in addition to the regular burnt offering for the morning. And then he goes on in 18 of Leviticus 9. Then Aaron slaughtered the bull and the ram for the people's peace offering. And it goes through all the instructions of exactly what he did. And in 22, after that, Aaron raised his hands toward the people and blessed them. Now, where did Aaron know what to do and how to do this? That's what the instructions were being given in the weeks prior to this actually happening. He was being told what to do and how to do it. And now he was taking action, and he was doing it in the prescribed way, in the way he was told to do it. When a doctor gives you a prescription, you're very careful to follow the prescription, the prescribed way that the doctor tells you to take that medication. Well, there are consequences if you don't. You can overdose on a medicine, you can take too little and it's not going to have any effect, but you do it in the prescribed way. Well, here our Creator prescribed a way for his priest of how to do something, and they did it in the prescribed manner, in a way. Well, the scriptures give us a way and prescribe a way for us as believers to live our lives. And that is to understand what the Torah says, and of the Torah commands, keep the ones you are able to. But how can you know what you're able to if you're not even reading it? If Moses wasn't even listening to our Creator when he says this is what you're supposed to do, how is he going to know what to tell Aaron what to do? And if Aaron wasn't listening to Moses, how was Aaron going to know? You have to listen, obey, and do. Well, the break in communication is most believers today aren't listening, so they don't know what the Torah says to do. So it says they did this just as Moses had commanded, and after that Aaron raised his hands toward the people and he blessed them. He blessed them. Then after that presented the sin offering, the burnt offering, the peace offering. He stepped down from the altar. And now after this we see what happened. Then Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle, and when they came back out, they blessed the people again, and the glory of the Creator appeared to the whole community. See, before he's going to appear to us, we have to be right with him, whether it's in our own personal time or whether it's in a big congregation of people. And I always have to say, when people say they go to a church and they say, oh, the glory of our Creator is upon this church today. No, he is not going to show up if you're being disobedient to what he asks you to do. So don't tell me he's going to show up in a building when people are completely there, a whole bunch of people, not only disobeying his instructions, but teaching other people his instruction, his prescribed way no longer matters to us. Well, that's not going to happen. But here we see Moses and Aaron and all the people of Israel and the community with them. They were listening, they did follow, and they were blessed. And then it says, fire blazed from the Creator's presence and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When the people saw this, they shouted with joy and fell on their face down to the ground. It was confirmation, folks. The fire represented, you see the smoke going up, and our Creator coming down and meeting the people. And this was confirmation, and we shouldn't have to see it to be convinced, folks. But here the people were obedient out of faith, and in return they saw it, and they were convinced. And I believe because they were so faithful, they were convinced prior to this even happening. Are you convinced that our Creator is who he is? Are you convinced Yeshua is who he is? Well, if that's true, how come you're not following the prescribed way he told us to live, which is Torah? Well, if you're a transgression on purpose from the Torah on a regular basis, you know, you need to get yourself right with our Creator. And if you want to feel his presence, his glory, and you want to see it, you have to be right with his instructions, his guidelines. So now we're going to look and we're going to see two of Aaron's sons who weren't right with the instructions and guidelines. And remember earlier in one of my previous Torah portions we discussed one of the consequences of disobeying the prescribed manner of our Creator is death. It's a sad story, folks. I mean, we see the disgusting details of the sacrifices and the blood and cleaning the internal organs. Well, sin is disgusting, folks. And it's not looking good in anyone's sight. Well, neither is the offering, but the idea behind it is beautiful. Well, the disobedience of our prescribed way of our Creator is one of the worst things we can do. And if you do not suffer consequences of death, there's going to be many consequences. You haven't been let off the hook, so to say. There's many consequences that you will suffer. And now we continue, we see the sin of Nadab and Abihu. And remember, sin is transgression of the prescribed way of our Creator. It's transgression of the Torah. So it says here in Leviticus 10, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, put coals on the fire in their incense burnings and sprinkled incense over them. In this way they disobeyed our Creator by burning before him the wrong kind of fire, different than he commanded. So we saw Aaron and we saw Moses giving Aaron the exact instructions. We saw the people of Israel with the exact instructions, and they followed the prescribed manner. But we see here Aaron and his two sons, and there's many ideas about exactly what they did. But we know clearly it says here that they did something that disobeyed the Creator by burning before them the wrong kind of fire, different than he had commanded. And the result, so fire blazed forth from the Creator's presence and burnt them up, and they died before our Creator. They died for disobedience. Now, somebody just reading this chapter, never knowing what the Torah says, thinks, well, that's cruel that they would just die, and there's too much death in the scriptures. Folks, you can't have love without hate, and you can't have life without death. When you're obedient to his word, he gives you a new life, a new spiritual life. You're a new birth. You're born again. But if you disobey and disagree with his instructions, you are going to suffer a death. Now, whether it's a spiritual death or a physical death, either way, death is taking place. And it's very interesting to know about the burnt offering. They actually became a burnt offering. Their disobedience. They were the imperfect burnt offering. They were completely burned up. It said they were burnt before our Creator for disobedience. And it says, then Moses said to Aaron, this is what our Creator meant when he said, I will display my holiness through those who come near me. I will display my glory before all the people. This is what he meant. I will display it to the obedient people. Oh, the disobedient people will see it, but not how they want to see it. There's going to be consequences, and they're going to know those consequences come directly from me as punishment for not being obedient to my word. This is serious, folks, being obedient to his word. You know, and so Aaron was silent when Moses said this. I mean, here's two of his sons were just, we just saw not too long ago, Aaron was on top of the world. He was the priest, and his sons were the priest, and he was the priestly line. And now his sons for not obeying the instructions exactly. So now the pressure's on Aaron now and his other sons. We got to get this right. Even more on them, because they've seen the result of this. You know, in the scriptures when it says a man pick up the stick on the Sabbath and he was to be put to death, or if a kid speaks to his parents disrespectful, he'll to be put to death. You know, we have to understand the idea of setting the tone of the community, making sure the root is not destroyed. And I'll tell you what, after that kid might have been put to death, or that man on the Sabbath might have been put to death, and Aaron and his sons were put to death, the other people are going to sure listen. They're going to take his word seriously. They're not going to say, oh, well, there's just no consequences for committing this sin and it doesn't make a difference. No, he's going to get your attention one way or the other. You know, so we need to be obedient to this and make sure that that we're doing what he said. So Aaron was silent. And it goes on in Leviticus 10:4. It says, then Moses called for Mishael and Azarpan, Aaron's cousins, the son of Aaron's uncle Uzziah, and he said to them, come forth and carry away the bodies of your relatives from the front of the sanctuary to place them outside the camp. They were unclean because they were disobedient. Outside the camp. So they came forward and picked them up by their garments and carried them out of the camp just as Moses had commanded. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, do not show grief by leaving your hair uncombed or by tearing your clothes. If you do, you will die. So, and not only you, but it says, and the anger of our Creator will strike the whole community of Israel. However, the rest of the Israelites, your relatives, may mourn because of our Creator's fury destruction on Nadab and Abihu. But you must not leave the entrance of the tabernacle. You will die, for you have been anointed with our Creator's anointing oil. So they did as Moses commanded. You see, our Creator connects everything. And when he made that oil, when he said those sacrifices, those instructions, he meant it. And he wanted people to follow it exactly the way he spoke. And this is setting up first he's telling the people and showing the people that the high priest need to understand the instructions, take it seriously, and follow them. And then later he's going to talk about the clean and the unclean and what the people have to follow. And he's setting the standard. He's creating the environment for this so the people will listen and understand. Then we look at the instructions for the priestly conduct in Leviticus 11:8. It said, then our Creator said to Aaron, you and your descendants must never drink wine or any other alcohol drink before going in the tabernacle. Now, folks, I believe we have to look today as the world as our tabernacle. That his presence is going to meet us where we're at, wherever we are, if we are obedient to him. When his spirit dwells inside us, you know, it doesn't have to come to us from a tabernacle or from a temple. No, it comes to us from our righteous heart. And our righteous heart is going to want to be obedient to the word. And wherever we are to reveal through us the glory of our wonderful Creator, and we're going to be doing that by our works. Now, folks, if the priests were told not to go into the tabernacle drunk or with alcohol or any alcoholic drink, including wine, before them, well, today I believe as well, we should not be drinking and of the influence of alcohol as well. Now here's something interesting to say. You must never drink wine or any other alcoholic drink. Now we have to understand, wine could have meant wine as we know it today, or wine could have meant slightly fermented grape juice. Either way, you shall never ever enter the tabernacle with this or any other alcoholic drink before going into the tabernacle. The fermentation that's going to create the alcohol, first of all, it's not healthy for the body, but it's not healthy for the spirit. It makes the mind wander. It makes us not follow the instructions the way we were designed to follow them. This creates an issue. The influence of alcohol is never something that's going to benefit somebody. Never. And we have other teachings on that of alcohol and the consequences that come from drinking that or partaking in that. But as we continue, it says, if you do, you would die. This is a permanent law for you, and you must be observed from generation to generation. You must distinguish between what is sacred and what is common. You must distinguish what is sacred and what is common. And that is instructions not only for Aaron's sons, but every single person out there that calls himself a believer. You must distinguish what is sacred and what's uncommon, what's holy and unholy. And this is our goal. This is what the scriptures are about. This is it. This is the importance of the Torah. It's to distinguish what is common and what is holy. This is the difference. That's what we need to know. So you must distinguish what is sacred and what is common, between what is ceremonially clean and unclean. And you must teach the Israelites all the decrees that our Creator has given them through Moses. Now, we look at this, and how are the children to know? Well, back then, everyone didn't have their own copy of the scriptures. Moses was presenting it to the people and giving it to them. Today we have this. This is Moses' word. We as believers must read this. And when we read it, we must know what is clean and unclean, what is common and uncommon. And we must not do the things that he tells us not to do. Leviticus 10:12. Then Moses said to Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, take what is left out of the grain offering after a portion has been presented as a special gift to our Creator, and eat it besides the altar. Make sure it contains no yeast, for it is most holy. You must eat it in a sacred place, for it has been given to you and your descendants, and your portion of the special gifts present to our Creator. These are the commands I have been given. But the breast and thigh that were lifted up as a special offering may be eaten in any place that is ceremonially clean. These parts have been given to you and your descendants as a portion for the peace offerings for the people of Israel. So now we're talking about what the priests were able to eat, what Aaron and his remaining sons were able to eat, where and how and why. And we'll look at this as creating the environment for what's going to happen to the people next, the giving of the clean and the unclean animals for the ordinary people, of what is set apart and what is holy. And just as it was important for the root or the understanding for the priest to follow what was clean and unclean when it came to food, to set up the perfect example for the people. We move down to Leviticus 10:16. It says, Moses then asked them what happened to the goat of the sin offering. When he discovered it had been burned up, he became very angry with Eleazar and Ithamar. Why didn't you eat the sin offering in the sacred area? He demanded. It is a holy offering. And then our Creator has given it to you to remove the guilt and of the community and to purify the people, making them right with our Creator. Since the animal's blood was not brought into the holy place, you should have eaten meat in a sacred area as I ordered. So here we see that this sin was committed. The instructions weren't followed. But then Aaron answered Moses, say, today my sons presented both their sin offering and their burnt offering to our Creator. And yet this tragedy has happened to me. If I have eaten the people's sin offering on such a tragic day as this, would our Creator have been pleased? And when Moses heard this, he was satisfied. So Aaron had his reason, and some people might say his excuse, but he had his reason for not following the commands or the guidelines directly the way he was given. Now remember, Moses was one of the judges. Remember with Jethro, his father-in-law said, let the people take the serious information or the serious situations to you, and you are to discern what is good and what is not good. Well, here Aaron presented this. Our Creator didn't call it bad or wrong what Aaron had done. He had a valid reason. And Moses came to the conclusion and was satisfied with certain things and situations like this. This shows a tremendous mercy of our wonderful Creator in the world of imperfection, how He will show His mercy in certain situations. And Moses didn't just agree it was okay. I'm sure Moses took this to our Creator, and they had an exchange, and it was determined that it was okay or satisfactory. And that's why Moses had the right to say it was satisfactory. Moses did not have the right himself to say, well, I'm satisfied with your answer. No, he had to present it to our Creator, and our Creator would have spoke to him saying, I'm satisfied with what Aaron did, or why Aaron did what he did, why he disobeyed. And then Moses can relay the message. Remember, Moses wasn't in charge here. Moses was the person, the messenger here. And that's that. Now, after we got through the instructions for the priests in the tabernacle and what they're to do specifically with the food to show their heart, now we're going to move down to Leviticus 11, instructions for the people, the ceremony of clean and unclean animals. And I will tell people all the time, food often in the scriptures is used as a metaphor to show what the clean and the unclean is about. That's partly of what the scriptures are about. It's separating the clean from the unclean. That is it, the holy from the unholy. And we already saw the consequence of not doing that. The priests had to, the pressures and the daily tasks that the priests had. Well, now we look at it for the people. And this area is probably one of the number one missed areas when it comes to keeping the Torah, is eating what is known as kosher food or what is clean food. You know, I've been studying for this Torah portion, and this area I know quite well because I'm a health teacher, and I was reading and listening to a lot of very well-known Bible teachers about this chapter. And just about every single one of them had the Christian mindset in saying, well, we no longer need to keep the clean and unclean animals because that was all done away with. That couldn't be further from the truth, folks. We definitely need to make sure that we're being obedient to our Creator's instructions if we can, and in this area we certainly can. Probably in all areas, in every single area of Scripture, this is probably the easiest one to still obey and is important to do so. And those people, and yourself including, if you think this was done away with, you need to read your scriptures, and because you're not understanding something, you're missing something tremendously. First of all, we have to understand there's no such thing as unclean food. You have the clean, which is okay, ordained, and good for us to eat, and then you have the unholy, the disgusting, the defiled, and that was never meant for food. It was never meant to be put in our bodies. It says in Leviticus 11:1, then our Creator said to Moses and Aaron, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Now, for those of you that say you're not Israel, it's for the community of Israel and anyone that was with Israel. They were not excluded from keeping this. It says, of all the land animals, these are the ones you may use for food. And now it gets into the clean and the unclean animals. And I can tell you this, folks, as somebody who observes the kosher guidelines and instructions, it is probably the easiest of all the scriptures. Yeah, you might love something unclean like pork or lobster, but I promise you, once you give that up, folks, you're not going to miss it because He provided an abundance of things that are okay and clean, and the blessings that come along with being obedient to His word is even that much more powerful. Why would you want the curses that come along with the disobedient by eating things He said not to eat? And He gave us these exact instructions of what they were and what they not were. And He goes into all these instructions, and that's what Leviticus 11 is about. And I'll just read some of it here. It says, of all the land animals, so of all the animals that walk on the land, it says, these are the ones you may use for food. So these are the ones you may use for food. So there's no such thing as the unclean food. It says these are the ones you use for food, and all the other ones, they're whatever reason they need to be used for, it's certainly not food. These are the ones that are to be used for food. Now, me being a vegetarian, I don't eat these. I don't eat any animals. I'm not saying our Creator said that we can't eat animals. He certainly gave us the instructions or the okay to eat certain animals here if we choose to. He didn't command that we need to eat these animals. There's only one time in the scripture where He commanded we eat an animal, we partake during the Passover. But there's nowhere in the instructions that say, you have to eat the animal. But if you do eat the animal, these are the ones. And remember, from a health standpoint, just because it's kosher doesn't mean it's healthy, because man has a habit of taking what our Creator has given us and destroying it. He did that with the food, He did that with the animals, He did that with the soil, He did that with everything. Well, our Creator told us what we can do if we wanted to eat animals. He said, of all the land animals, these are the ones you may use for food. You may eat any animal that has completely split hooves and chews the cud. What in the world does chewing the cud mean? For a long time, I had no idea what that meant. But basically, an animal that's going to chew its food or regurgitate its own food in its mouth would be clean, or would be okay. That's what cud means, chew its own cud, regurgitating the food and chewing it in its mouth. So we see certain animals like this. And then he goes on just not only giving the example, but he explains what some of those animals were. And these were just some of the animals that were known at that time. And he'll go here in Leviticus 11 and we'll talk about it. But remember, a clean animal had split hooves and chewed his own cud. Then he goes on to say, you, however, may not eat the animal, the following animals. They have split hooves or that chew the cud, but not both. So the animals had to have both, the split hooves, and also they had to chew the cud. The camel chews the cud, you know, and you see the animal, the camel chewing and chewing and chewing, but does not have split hooves in his foot. The hooves aren't split. So it is unclean. And he used the camel as an example. He used the camel as an example. The hare chews the cud, but does not have split hooves. So it is unclean. The pig has evenly split hooves, but does not chew the cud, and it is unclean. You may not eat the meat of these animals or even touch their carcasses. They are ceremonially unclean for you. So not only are you not to eat them once they perish, you're not even to touch their carcasses. They are ceremonially unclean. Of the marine animals, so now he gets into the animals of the sea, and he says, these are the ones you may use for food. You may eat anything from the water if it has both fins and scales, whether it takes from salt water or from streams. But you must never eat animals from the sea or from rivers that do not have both fins and scales. They are detestable to you. A lobster is detestable to you according to our Creator's words. How many of you are willing to give up lobster so you can have the glory of our presence dwell inside you? Well, not too many people are ready to do that today, and that's the problem. That's the heart. That's the issue that we're talking about. And then he even goes, this applies to little creatures that are in shallow water or creatures that are in the deep seas. Any marine animal that does not have both fins and scales is detestable to you. Now he goes into the birds. So he goes into the fowl of the air. These are the birds that are detestable to you. You must never eat them, the griffin, vulture, the bearded vulture, or the black vulture, the kite, falcons, or all kinds, ravens of all kinds, or eagle, the short eagle, the seagull, or the hawks of all kinds, the little owl, the cormorant, or the great owl, the barrow owl, the desert owl, the Egyptian vulture, the stork herons, and the kinds of, and all these different kinds of bats. So now he gives the instructions, or at least he gives the animals of the air that we're not to eat. And later he'll give the instructions of those. But he says you must not eat wiggled insects that walk along the ground. You may, however, eat wiggled insects that walk along the ground and have joined legs so they can jump. The insects you are permitted to eat include all kinds of locusts, bald locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers. And everything else is detestable to you. So it says here, folks, the instructions, and he's given it to you clearly, and this is something so many people miss and transgress, and this is why there's problems. Then he gives you the following creatures that are ceremonially unclean. If you touch their carcass, you will be defiled until evening. If you pick up their carcass, you must wash your clothes and remain defiled until evening. Any animal that has split hooves and are not evenly divided, or that does not chew the cud, is unclean for you. And if you touch their carcasses, it goes down, it continues to give all these instructions. And then we see here in Leviticus 11:33, if an animal falls into a clay pot, even that pot is defiled. So these instructions were given for a reason. And whether that reason is our Creator wanted to see how far we're willing to go to follow His directions, guidelines, and instructions, or whether it's that He just put them there to make them easy for us, we can't ignore the fact that He put them there. That is essential, folks, that we remember that. He put them there for a reason. So in this week's Torah portion, we'll jump down to 11:46 of Leviticus. It says, these are the instructions regarding the land animals, the birds, the marine creatures, and the animals that scurry along the ground. By these instructions, you will know what is clean and unclean, and which animals may be eaten and which animals may be not eaten. And he's going to continue to give more instructions in next week's Torah portion, which we're going to start in Leviticus 12. But we have to understand, he sets the standard, and he used food as the standard. Food is nourishment that he's going to give us. He gave us the instructions for the food that was to be sacrificed, and the things that weren't even considered food, the things that were imperfect. He gave the priest the instructions for how to use them, and now he gave the people the instructions of how to use them or not use them. And he wants to see a heart. And then he's going to get into more instructions about purification and cleansing, and talks all about what that is and the result, disease or death. He's going to get into that. Folks, this Torah portion is so important to me, and it should be important to everyone because it shows our heart. And if you want the glory of the presence of our Creator to be in front of you, you have to have the heart of obedience to His word. And we got to stop listening to the idea that we're excused from keeping His guidelines and instructions and continuing to live in transgression of the Torah. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. Thanks for checking it out, and read next week's Torah portion. After you read this one, get ready, more's coming. Check out the previous Torah portion on my website, TorahLifeMinistries.org, and I look forward to your questions. Until then, everybody, have a great Shabbat, and Shalom, Shalom.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways. Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world,